you communicate with Sergeant Dobby. I've never heard him refer to anyone like that, so I'm sure that you're not one of those. And I would suggest that you continue to engage with Sergeant Dobby, and similarly, if you do have challenges around providing us with information electronically, then of course we're more than happy to speak with you at Princes Road, and there's, as I say, officers that are based there, both from the neighbourhood policing team and the local policing team. So that shouldn't change because the front office is unfortunately no longer there. There are, the fact that the officers are still there has not changed. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on some of the other queries, or do you want me to address them?
I don't actually know the location of the road, I have to admit. My knowledge of Maldon's road isn't very detailed enough to understand where the white line is and which side of the road they're parking on. So if you do, or if somebody else does...
I can confirm exactly what you said. Right. The parents of the children...
I wasn't disbelieving, I just said I don't know where it is.
Yeah. I can concur that is where he describes is a wrong.
Right. So just so I've got it clear in my head, are we talking obviously at school drop-off and pick-up times, peak times,
yes.
And it's parents dropping
yes.
children off at school? Are we talking about, I can't remember if there's any parking restrictions down that specific road?
Unfortunately, there isn't.
So there isn't?
There's another white line in the middle.
Yeah.
There's no parking restrictions at the side.
Right, so I think that's unfortunately part of the challenge then, notwithstanding your point around the crossing of the single white line. But if there's no parking restrictions in place and cars are taxed and insured and roadworthy, and they're on the road, from a police enforcement perspective, there's not a significant amount that we can do in regards to the parking. But that's not to suggest that I'm not conscious of the concerns that you raise around public safety and the requirement to cross the white line. So what I was going to suggest was, Spencer, if yourself and I perhaps have a discussion, it sounds to me like something that we might have to try and resolve via consultation with the school and working with the school in order to the messaging around. I appreciate the scepticism, however, we have to work within the legislation that we have. And if we haven't got any parking restrictions that can be enforced by the Safer Essex Parking Partnership, and we've not got any issues in regards to potentially criminal matters being caused, then we are somewhat left with the legislation that we have, which is minimal, but we could look to work with the school and try and behave and change behaviours and prevent it from being a challenge moving forward. Because otherwise, like you suggest, we're left with not really a lot of options from a sort of statutory agency perspective. I mean, I don't know if you want to come in on any of that, Spencer, at all.
No, I mean that sounds like the sensible approach. I think this has been reported before, and I think it's been through our highways panel and South Essex Parking Partnership have done some work around that. But I think working with the school seems the sensible approach initially. Did you want to say something?
Because
I know you've got.
Just going to give a bit of background.
That's right.
So I put in a set application to sort of rationalise the parking around there, because there were two stalls. There's one on Maldon Road and then another one on All Saints. So at drop off and pick up, it is chaotic. There's a lot of very bad parking that goes on. Unfortunately, as you know, with set applications, they go out to consultation, and pretty much everybody objected. Parents objected, taxi drivers objected. So that's as far as we got.
Right.
I think that we could do it, Tom, is actually, because we tried to do it for quite a large area, London Road and also Beacon Hill, is that we could separate out. There are sort of 3 areas there. So we could go back and do it again, but rather than trying to deal with the whole area, is just do one at a time, which would then minimise the amount of objections we get. So I'm happy to support that, Tom. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Did I understand, can I say Tom, I just picked up your name, you seem to suggest that actually just switching the side of the road would make a big difference.
Yeah. It would make a massive difference if the parents just parked on the one side coming up.
How about putting up a sign saying, please park on whichever side it is?
Even bollarding it actually would work.
Took away the corns of the group on one occasion up London Road. They kicked him into the hedge.
Which is depressing, isn't it? Very. Okay. I just wonder whether there's a different solution than the one that, as you say, maybe going for a smaller area, maybe a more specific thing, and it looks as though there's going to be a conversation happening, judged by the body language right now. Thank you for raising it.
I'd like to see police around the area on bikes, not scooting through on a 20, 30, 40 mile an hour or whatever. That would be a deterrent in itself, just when you take a photograph and then get fined because I was able to hand photographs and got them done.
I think probably on foot is better than on bikes generally. No, I know. There was a case down over in Orsett, Thurrock Way, where the local council decided to buy the police bikes. It wasn't a great success. Sorry.
Sorry, so I've got a gentleman there, and then one at the back.
Thank you. Sorry, John Brown, Fulham Parish Council, and mine is somewhat very specific to us, I suspect. We had a recent significant burglary. The police took 4 hours to attend. We've had explanation, there was a good reason, the 2 units that were available on that day were busy dealing with more serious crime. But we're now left with villagers who are, demanding that the parish council use private security or something else so that there is a visible deterrent. Is there any prospect of getting, or are we talking about police on bikes, on walking? It doesn't help actually solve your crimes because your statistics are going down, I can understand that. But there is certainly for people to feel safe. So is there any possibility of getting more police visibility out into some of our small rural villages?
We've certainly done it before where there's been a particular hotspot and a need for reassurance. I don't know your particular instance. I don't know if is there anything you want to say about that or
Sure. Thank you. Obviously, when a community or an individual has been the victim of crime, it feels very raw and it's quite, understandably keenly attunes the senses to policing and crime and policing matters. What I would say is that Maldon remains the lowest volume crime district in the county and the second lowest per 1,000 household of any district in the county, with that crime continuing to fall. So that's not to sidestep your question, it's just to provide the context that in the broad strokes terms, Maldon is a safe county in regards to crime recording standards from a police perspective.
The statistics didn't help.
I agree, and I was, as I said,
crimes are crime.
I understand. However, obviously on a daily basis, Essex Police receives a number of emergency incidents, a number of emergency calls, and we apply prioritisation to how we respond to those. And those can change on an hourly, minute or daily basis. What I would say is that if your community is feeling particularly concerned around police visibility and particularly in need of police engagement, then please just contact us. And the reason why I say that is I quite often get contacts from parish councillors, local councillors, county councillors, members of the public directing to me or via my teams, where they're asking for our support around a particular issue and or a particular feeling that they have following on from some crimes. Whilst I'm very aware that Chelmsford and Maldon as districts are extremely different and the crime rate in Maldon is significantly lower, those crimes in more rural areas are sometimes more keenly felt because you are more, I wouldn't say isolate's the wrong word, but you are out a little bit further on your own in those rural communities. So we're very tuned to that, and what I would say is that if you do want some further police engagement and you've got some genuine concerns, then please just ask. And I don't mean that to put the emphasis on you. What I mean by that is that we are more than willing and very happy to go and engage with the community and allay some of those concerns. And if you have got crime issues that you want to, or antisocial behaviour issues that you want to raise in specific areas, we will respond to them. So if you're happy to, I'm happy to discuss afterwards. If you're okay, we'll just get some details and perhaps I can pass them on to the team so they can contact you.
So we've had plenty of visits from the police to, I can't remember what it's called now, our first day, Walters Camp, thank you. So we've had plenty of visits from the police there, and that's been absolutely great. We've been very pleased with that. It's the regular, actually seeing the police on the streets, even if it was just a car driving through, that's really what people want. So is there any opportunity for that to happen, even if it's only for, can this bit not be recorded?
Yeah.
It's only for a couple of months, just to keep those residents, as you say, very raw with them.
Without saying I can make absolute promises, because we don't live in an absolute world, what I can say is that yes, that is something we would look to support, but we've got to be conscious of the fact that we have also got to police a significantly large district. You know, whilst it may not be heavily populated, Maldon is a significant district in regards to geography and size. So we have to be conscious of that, and we can't be everywhere all the time. However, what we can do is we can make sure that we put our resources in the areas where the community are telling us they feel they're needed, and that's where that open communication, that dialogue comes from. I'm pleased to hear that the engagement is positive, but you're quite right. If we need to be there in addition to that on a general business as usual day to day, then again, got no issue with that whatsoever if that's what the community feel is needed.
Can I ask, do you have neighbourhood watch?
Sorry?
Do you have neighbourhood watch?
Unfortunately, it's the neighbourhood watch groups that have been perpetuating. Now they're starting to report one burglary in Hatfield, Pefferell, one burglary in Stock. You know, these are miles away, but now that they weren't doing that a month ago.
Right.
Since we've had one major burglary,
Everything's a
unfortunately,
headline.
neighbourhood watch is picking up on all these bits and actually making it worse. And the biggest problem we've got is those people who previously weren't frightened of crime, they're now being wound up and starting to fear crime. That personally, I think one burglary every now and then is actually very low.
It sounds low. Obviously, we'd rather it didn't happen. But I just wonder whether there's something we can do about engaging better with the neighbourhood watch and helping them work out how to be taking positive action as opposed to increasing public concern. Yeah. And there's, I mean, Fire and Rescue do some stuff around home safety as well, which can be. It certainly was in it. It was good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sort of a loose link and a bit of a plug for Essex Fire Rescue Service with their home fire safety visits. Hopefully everyone's aware of that facility that we offer. If anyone wants a home fire safety visit from the Fire Rescue Service, we'll have teams that come out and will speak to you about fire safety within your own home, provide free smoke detectors if required. We'll talk to you about escape plans and everything else like that. But linked in with us being an emergency service, I know we're not the police, however, the more home fire safety visits and engagement we can do with members of the community, you will have an emergency vehicle on your streets, whether that be in the form of a fire engine, a fire car or a fire van, or a uniformed service, that still also can have an effect and act as a deterrent when people see more engagement from the emergency services in and around the villages and the local community. So to push the home fire safety visit aspect with members of your community not only helps us with providing prevention and protection with regards to fire safety, it's also assists with a visible deterrent as well. So thank you.
It's not they're going to deal with burglary, but actually experience is it does improve public confidence in living in a safe community. So if you are...
Exactly the question I was asking,
Yeah.
public confidence.
Yeah. Thank you.
Gentleman here is please.
Just following on from the economy behind parish councillor for Woodland Ferrers and Big Naker. Unfortunately, we became so disillusioned with the lack of visible presence. We now hire a private security firm, a few £100 a month, £300-400 a month, because we just don't perceive you. It's as simple as that, really. So we now higher S-type security, and we do see them. We see them driving around in cars. They're a police-looking car, if you like. They're blue and they're yellow, and they go up and down, and they respond to low-level, crime, if you like. And it's a shame that it's come to that. And yes, you talk about, the best clear-up rates and low crime, and this, that, and the other. But the local parishioners don't feel it. We see local drug dealing on the two parks, on the Who, and up at Priory Fields. We just never see it. So hence, as a local parish council, that's the length we've gone to placate the local parishioners, really. That's the first thing. The second thing was mentioned about parking there. Some forces have brought in Operation Park Safe, because dangerous parking is a point centre fine. It's a serious offence, dangerous parking. Can that be done by the extra eyes, or would Essex Police consider a dedicated Operation Park Safe platform to submit photos and things of dangerous parking?
That's an intriguing idea. I don't think we've had it yet.
Never heard.
No.
I think, so the thing for me is that as police, we don't enforce parking.
Dangerous parking.
So we enforce legislation that is related to parking, i.e. the obstruction of a highway and or something similar. So the scheme that you're referring to is not one that I'm familiar with, so I won't be able to comment with any confidence in regards to that. I'm not aware of Essex Police currently exploring any options around a similar or the same scheme. What I can say is that the Safer Essex, the Safer Essex Parking Partnership, South Essex Parking Partnership, they do respond in regards to parking issues where you've got parking restrictions, and then when you've got parking that is a criminal obstruction of the highway, then that would be for the police to enforce, and we would obviously be notified. So if we're talking about criminal obstruction of the highway, that is something that we would look to potentially utilise the extra eyes for. But we wouldn't necessarily use it for single, double, red lines, that sort of thing, because that would be that'd be set. Yeah, that'd be.
That'd be considered dangerous.
It's not that dangerous. It's about an obstruction of the highway. So there is. That's what I'm saying. So for us, it would be set for the parking restriction areas. For us, it's the criminal obstruction of the highway. In relation to your other points around private security and visibility, obviously it's the parish council's purview to do as they see fit with their funds. Obviously, I'd much rather that they didn't feel there was a need to. However, obviously, it's within your purview to utilise your funds in such a way. I'm not going to comment on private security, and I hope you'll understand why. What I would say is much the same as to the gentleman who spoke before you. Again, this isn't notwithstanding to say that you didn't, but what I can say is, whilst we can't always get there every time, if we are aware of concerns or issues that are raised to us, we always try to manage and respond to those as effectively and as appropriately as we can. I do understand that unfortunately we can't always match the expectations of the public in regards to that due to the level of resourcing available and or other priorities that we are managing. However, we always do look to try and deal with it as much as we can. So if you do, or your communities do feel like they've got those sort of issues, then please tell us, because we will rely on the information that we are providing in order to task out our resources and what we do. So again, not to sidestep, far from it, please do talk to us and do tell us about these issues. And whilst we can't always respond every time, unfortunately, based on some of the other things that we might be doing at that stage, we will always look to try and do something, even if it's working with our colleagues in either the fire or in the council and the community safety partnership, because, and I'm not going to bring Spencer in on this because it's not fair to be passing backwards and forwards, but the community safety partnership also do high visibility patrols. They also do a lot of work in the community in order to try and prevent antisocial behaviour and reassure the public. And we work really closely with them doing that. So it may not be necessarily that it's a police response initially, but it might be a partner agency one as well. But if we know about it, we can. Again, that's not to say that you haven't tried to tell us about it. I'm just saying that if the residents can tell us, then we'll absolutely look to respond as best as we can.
Just to confirm, online would be the best way to do that, via your website or whatever.
Everyone's needs are different, so it would be unfair of me to say this is the way to do it. What I would say is that we are a lot more accessible than we ever were, and a lot of people find our online methods, particularly as a society evolve and our technology evolves, as a lot more effective way of communicating with us, particularly for those type of issues. But again, it may well be that some of your community are not confident or able to utilise those online methods. So I wouldn't say use one, not another. I would say that it is really a good way of doing it, as long as it's something that you've got comfortable doing.
Thank you.
Sorry, could I just ask Council, have you had any complaints about heavy swifts parking on the Scotland Road estate?
I think we have in the past.
Okay. Anything, but it still happens on match day where they've blocked both sides of the road, you can never get an emergency vehicle.
I'm not sure what we have in terms of restrictions there.
There's no restriction for that. It needs to be double yellows on the bend.
Yeah.
Right to the end of the road.
Yeah, I can take that away. I know that some of my colleagues have dealt with some issues here in recent months on match days, so it's something we can look at and see if we can do some joint working with them perhaps.
I can assure you, in terms of hearing motors and fireworks, they're not anywhere near the cars or the car parks, I think there's locals.
We've
got one last question, I think, is the...
Yeah, I was going to say, we've actually, thank you all for coming, we've actually filled the hour, but we're going to hand over to Adrian to give us a few final points.
So, Roger, we've been having these meetings for a long time now.
Yep.
So, I wish you well with your time in May. For those of you who don't know, Adrian Frick, I'm a ward member for South District Council, and appear to be the only one that's here this evening, so one can only presume the Police and Fire Commissioner here 100% satisfied with you. Southeastern, as you know, Roger, it's one of the most rural wards in Essex. I mean, it's really no secret that there's a county line that goes direct into it. It's served by both vehicular access and by the trains. It's all been brought to the attention of the service that they seems to be done. I mean, it's no secret some perpetations of a drug cartel, I call it, that operated from Chelmsford Prison, which was located south east of Burnham. You were given all the information where those drugs came from, and nothing happened. So I can say that for sure. I never followed that line. I think one of the biggest problems as well is that we don't see police officers. We know we're a long way away from them. I think maybe before the unbelief, that's kind of story. But prior to that, I think last time I saw 3 or 4 police officers when my yacht was moored off a captain of the air show, and they asked if they could come on board and use the toilets. And I mean, it's all very well saying that there's not a lot of crime in Maldon and Southeastern, but we are still paying for the service that you provide. And I don't think it's unreasonable to see the police present. The other thing that concerns local residents is security involving the transfer of information to the police service. There was a rather large campus road that was brought to our attention by community-minded people. It was successfully raided. During that process, the person that was responsible for the road, it was intimated to them who told the police service. And that's just unacceptable. Unacceptable. And that actually came back to haunt me. I think that is totally and utterly unacceptable. And people are very, very concerned about giving information to the police and what happens to it. I mean, it's a fundamental way that the police operates, but if the information is not secure and it's passed on to people, that's totally unacceptable. And all it means is that the public, which is there has been a lot of associated crime in relation to the drug dealing, and this is how this, we're not talking about a £5 bag of cannabis here. We're talking £3,000 on bar, pub, and a 9mm Beretta. Is that acceptable? I don't think so. And then, during one of these incidents, a police officer turned up in the pub, and everybody thought, well, now it's going to kick off, and they came in to check the premises license. Even though everybody ran for their lives outside the pub, that's why they come to the pub. And Chief Inspector, I know this goes on. You'll say this goes on in a lot of pubs, and you don't have the resources to do this. But we're not talking, we're not talking about a £5 drawer off the top of the toilet seat or something on the toilet system. It's more than that. It's a lot more than that. And you can tell by where the cars come from. They're not local people. You can tell by their accents, they're not local people. And this has been going on for a long time. It's been brought to your attention. And we never see a police officer. All we see is lots of people coming into the area. You know what happens, Chief Inspector? What they do is they come in, somebody walks into a pub, I know there's some people in my village, they walk into the pub, they buy a pint, and they stand there. They don't slosh it down, they might have enough, and then a transaction occurs, and they leave the pub, and the beer is on the bar. So I think that's just a tad suspicious. But anyway, I've said my part. It would be nice to see some more police officers and South Minister. But just to end on an upbeat moment, Roger, as I said, I can go all the way back to you and Nick Alston, where we struggled to keep Maldon District and Maldon Police Station open. We then arranged to have the police station, say, moved into Maldon, which I think was a great thing that we achieved. I think rural policing on rural crime, I think, has made an impact in the nation, particularly out where we are. And it would be remiss of me not to mention the other side of your job, because often it never gets mentioned. Now the fire department's getting worried because he knows what I'm going to talk about now. But I just hope that he can reassure me that Tillingham Retained Fire Station will continue to operate. We will continue with the number of appliances that we've got there at the moment. We will retain the same number of firemen that we've got there. And I would like to speak to you in private after. Thank you, Roger. I've said my part.
Thank you, Adrian. There was a lot in there, and
Well, that's a comment.
yeah, thank you for the comments you made. I would just say one thing. So, if there's been an incident where the public feel that, or have seen the police or experienced the police give out sensitive information like that, I think really that merits a complaint. It needs to be followed up, because that's just not supposed to happen. I mean, it is against protocol and procedure, so it needs to be complained about. In terms of security information, please use Crime Stoppers. 0800 555 111, that is anonymous.
Roger, with the greatest respect, right? These are all reported crimes, so I feel,
Yeah.
I feel completely at ease mentioning this, but let's just take North Street, I think on South Street in Essex Police. They raided a grow there, yeah. I think they raided 2 premises, yeah. You got the wrong ones, yeah. The really big ones were down the road, and they moved everything within the previous 72 hours. Crime Stoppers were up to inform them what was going on. Nothing. So I know what you're saying, Roger, but it's how the system works which is wrong. Something is not quite right in all of this.
I'd really like to understand better exactly what's going on there, because the intimation is that the information is leaking, and that's.
Well, no, I didn't say it was leaking on that. What I said was that the police have raided, I think, 2 houses in South Street in Tillingham. They got the right houses, but they moved a whole load of stuff from these houses into other houses. A lot of the paraphernalia involved, pretty much all the proper stuff, not just the cannabis and that side of the road. And that was reported through Crime Stoppers. And it wasn't picked up on, by which
which is very frustrating.
Yeah, I know.
I'd say, okay, I've said what I wanted to say about the importance of making sure that we understand where something which is against procedure may have happened. But in terms of actually the policing of the most remote parts of the Dengie, is there anything you'd like to?
Thank you. So in preparation for this evening, one of the things that I did was have a conversation with my neighbourhood policing team, Sergeant Matt Dalby, just to get an idea of any recent activity that they wanted me to highlight during the meeting if it became prevalent. And one of the things that he discussed was the work that they've been doing in Southminster and Burnham in regards to antisocial behaviour, electric scooters and patrols in regards to e-bikes. So conscious, councillor, of your view around obviously no visibility or limited visibility in Southminster and Burnham. However, not to say that you're necessarily incorrect, because obviously you see what you see or you don't see what you don't see, but I can assure you that from my team, they are saying that that's some of the recent activity that they've done in order to respond to direct concerns raised to them by constituents within Southminster and Burnham around antisocial behaviour on e-bikes and e-scooters. So conscious of the fact that you didn't raise that as an issue, but also just to advise that that is something that the team have been working on and are continuing to challenge and tackle in your areas. In response to some of the other points you raised, apologies, hopefully I'll remember them. If I don't, then please let me know. It's not common, fortunately, for a Beretta and a load of cocaine to be on the bar of a pub in Essex or in general. So what I would say is, conscious of the fact that you've raised some concerns around information security, what I can say to you with absolute certainty is that anything reported via Crime Stoppers doesn't come into the police with any details of who provided that information. We have had information in regards to serious crimes, including murders, in regards to potential suspects or evidence that we've not been able to follow up on because Crime Stoppers just will not provide that information. That's the whole purpose of them. So that is 100% secure. Just to echo Mr. Hurst's comments, if you have had information that you feel has been provided that shouldn't have been provided to people that shouldn't have been provided, then that is absolutely something that I would complain to Essex Police about, so that we can ensure that those people that have been involved in that can be managed and dealt with appropriately in regards to whatever process that might look like, and similarly to prevent it from happening in the future. So no, again, that isn't something that we would tolerate. It's certainly not something that we should be allowing or accepting as happening. Just trying to think if there's anything else. Other than, as I say, I accept your comments around police activity and responding to information that's provided by the community, and I appreciate I've touched upon it earlier on already, but you're right, absolutely we need to hear from the community and understand what the issues are that are causing them the challenges that they face on a daily basis. I do genuinely, and I mean this, I do genuinely understand the frustration sometimes when information is provided and it may not obviously or seem to be responded to or dealt with immediately. I do understand the frustration around that. What I can say though, with confidence, having been on the receiving end and seeing a lot of this information and intelligence coming in, is that we do receive it, we do record it, and then when we have sufficient information in order to provide us with the basis for legal enforcement, we do use it and we do take it. When we don't, then we do look to utilise some of our other means with which we can try and resolve that issue, like for example, extra patrols, extra visibility, those sort of things that we've discussed with some of the other councillors that are in the room. So we certainly do look to utilise that information. I appreciate that it can be frustrating, it doesn't always seem like that, and I do understand where yourself and some of your constituents are coming from, but please do continue to engage with us and please do continue to report to us, as some of your residents have in regards to the antisocial behaviour challenges they've been having around e-bikes and e-scooters that we've responded to.
Well, I just agree with you for come from Crime Stoppers. Thank you.
So thank you very much for that. Do we have?
No, I think that's everybody has.
I think everyone's had a turn. That's the advantage of having a smallish number. Everyone gets the chance to ask a question, and we've certainly managed to fill the evening with some really relevant points, and hopefully managed to provide some information to you which is useful. You've certainly provided a lot to us which is useful, and you can rest assured that we will take that away and we will digest it and we'll work out what we can do better to help you more. So again, thank you very much indeed for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. These meetings are always useful. I think we've learned this evening that small can be beautiful and very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.